Imagine stepping into a temple lost in time. The air is thick with smoke. Shadows dance on the walls cast by firelight. You hear the low hum of drums, slow, steady, like a heartbeat. Every sound echoes like the building itself is alive. You move closer, deeper, and you see them, figures in robes, faces painted, hands raised to the sky. They are not performing a show. This is a ritual, a sacrifice, a sacred offering to forces older than memory. Man kneels, not in prayer, but in surrender. The high priest steps forward, eyes fixed, blade in hand. The crowd begins to chant, louder and louder, and then silence, a moment suspended in time. The knife rises. The gods are watching. These scenes aren't from horror films. They are real. They happen on mountaintops, in deserts, in forests, and stone cities across the world. Before there were empires, there were rituals. Before there were kings, there were sacrifices. And long before we understood science, nature, or death, people looked to the gods, and the gods demanded blood. This is the story of dark rituals, of empires that ruled with faith and fear, of offerings made to unseen forces, and of the terrifying lengths humans have gone to just to touch the divine. Welcome to a world where blood was power, and power was everything. You are watching The Pendulum of Truth. If you like to learn history, then subscribe to the channel. High in the mountains of central Mexico, there once stood a city of breathtaking power, Tenochtitlan. It was the heart of the Aztec Empire, built on lakes, canals, and sheer determination. A city of warriors, of poets, of gods. But beneath the beauty was a darker truth. You see, the Aztecs didn't just worship their gods. They believed they were feeding them, literally. At the center of their world stood Huitzilopochtli, the god of the sun and war. To the Aztecs, the sun wasn't guaranteed to rise each day. It needed fuel, not fire, not prayer, but human blood. Every battle was a harvest. Captives weren't just prisoners. They were sacrifices in waiting, and every victory meant more offerings for the gods above. On festival days, the temples filled with music, fire, and crowds. The captured warrior would be led to the top of the pyramid. He knew what was coming, but he was told it was an honor to be a messenger to the gods. At the very top, 4 men would hold him down. A priest, his face painted in ash and crimson, would raise an obsidian knife. With one swift motion, he would cut through the chest and pull out the heart, still beating. The crowd below would roar. The priest would offer the heart to the sun, and the blood would flow down the temple steps. It sounds brutal, but to the Aztecs it was sacred. A cosmic duty, a way to keep the world alive. These weren't mindless killings. These were rituals, guided by a complex calendar, astrology, and prophecy. Each ceremony had meaning, each offering a purpose. Even the choice of victims mattered. Strong warriors, healthy youths, even children, chosen for purity, strength, or status. Some were treated like royalty in their final days, fed well, honored, dressed like gods, and then offered. But no empire lasts forever. When the Spanish arrived in 1519, they were both horrified and fascinated. They used the Aztecs' rituals as proof of savagery, a reason to conquer, to destroy. Temples were torn down, statues shattered, the Great Pyramids reduced to rubble, and the heart of a civilization, both literally and symbolically, was ripped out. Today, we walk on top of what they built. Their blood runs beneath the concrete. And though their rituals may seem barbaric, They remind us of a deeper truth, that across time, people have always searched for meaning, for order, for protection, even if the price was blood. In the heart of ancient Rome, there stood a monument to power, fear, and spectacle, the Colosseum, a towering arena where tens of thousands gathered to witness death. To many, it was entertainment, but at its core, the Roman arena was something far older and far darker, a ritual of blood, control, and the divine right of emperors. The Romans were brilliant engineers, thinkers, and conquerors, but they also believed that violence could serve a sacred purpose. The gladiator games weren't just sport. They were public ceremonies meant to demonstrate Rome's glory, its dominance over life and death. And above all, they were tools of control. Picture this. An emperor sits high above the arena, watching calmly. Below him, prisoners fight to survive. Beasts from far-off lands, lions, elephants, tigers, are unleashed. Blood soaks the sand, and the people cheer. In this arena, Rome wasn't just fighting men, it was fighting nature itself, taming the wild, proving that Roman civilization, order, law, strength, was superior to chaos. Some events were even tied to religious festivals, games held to honor Jupiter, Mars, or the spirits of the dead. To spill blood in front of the gods was to show loyalty, cleanse the city, to restore balance. Gladiators were often seen as sacrifices. Some were criminals, others slaves. A few were free men who chose this path for money or fame. But once they entered that arena, they all became offerings. Some battles were over in seconds, others went on for hours. Life or death often came down to a signal from the emperor's thumb. But here's what many forget. Death wasn't always the goal. The spectacle was the blood, the fear, the excitement. All of it was meant to unite the Roman people in a shared experience, a shared belief in the power of the empire. The games also played a political role. Emperors gave the people bread and circuses, food and entertainment, to keep them from questioning authority. Distract them with violence, and they won't revolt. In a way, the arena became a kind of stage. The gladiators, actors, the blood, a message. That message? Rome rules everything: life, death, nature, and the gods themselves. Today, the Colosseum is a ruin, a tourist attraction. But if you stand in the center and listen carefully, you might still hear the echoes. The roar of the crowd, the clash of steel, the cry of the condemned. It's easy to dismiss it all as savagery. But remember this, the Romans weren't just thirsty for blood. They were hungry for power, order, and legacy. And for a time, they found all of it in the ritual of the arena. When you think of ancient Egypt, you probably picture pyramids, mummies, and golden tombs, right? And yeah, those things are amazing. But there's a much deeper, stranger side to Egypt that we don't talk about enough. A side filled with rituals, mystery, and a whole lot of obsession with death. See, to the ancient Egyptians, death wasn't the end of the story. Not even close. It was just another stop in a much bigger journey, one that led to eternity. So when someone died, especially someone important like a pharaoh, there was a huge process that kicked in. First, the body was carefully mummified, not just to keep it from rotting, but because they believed the soul needed the body to be intact in the next world. They'd pull out the organs, dry them, and place them in jars with little gods on top. The heart usually stayed inside. It was important for the big test later. But the brain, nah, they yanked it out through the nose and tossed it. They thought it wasn't that useful. Go figure. Here's where it gets a little darker. In the early days, some pharaohs weren't buried alone. They were buried with real people. Servants, guards, even wives, who were sometimes killed just for the burial. Why? Because they were supposed to serve the king in the afterlife too. Talk about loyalty taken to the extreme. Eventually, they moved away from that and started burying little statues called ushabti instead. The idea was these tiny figures would magically come to life and do all the hard work for you in the afterlife. Much safer and a lot less creepy. Egyptians believed the afterlife wasn't just automatic. You had to earn it. Your soul would stand trial. Your heart was weighed against a feather. Yeah, a feather, representing truth and balance. If your heart was too heavy with sin, boom, it got eaten by a demon monster named Ahmed, and you'd be erased forever. But if your heart passed the test, you'd get paradise. A perfect version of Earth, with endless food, green fields, and all your favorite stuff. Forever. And it wasn't just for the rich or powerful. Everyday Egyptians also did what they could to get ready for death. They'd save up for their own coffins, get spells written, hire priests to say the right prayers. Some even carried little pocket-sized cheat sheets for the afterlife, like a spiritual travel guide. So, yeah, Egypt's rituals weren't full of blood and gore like the Aztecs or the Romans, but they were just as intense. Just in a different way. These people spent their whole lives getting ready for death, not because they feared it, but because they respected it. They believed it was the key to something bigger, something eternal. And honestly, that's kind of beautiful and a little spooky. Now, let's talk about ancient China. Ancient China wasn't just about dynasties and dragons. Behind all the poetry and palaces, there were secrets. Strange rituals, hidden potions, and emperors chasing one wild dream: immortality. Enter the alchemists. These guys were part scientists, part mystics. They mixed herbs, metals, and mystery, trying to create the elixir of life. One emperor, Qin Shi Huang, was obsessed. He drank potions made with mercury and gold, thinking it would make him live forever. Spoiler, it didn't. It probably killed him faster. But this wasn't just about magic drinks. Alchemy in China was about balance, yin and yang, fire and water. They believed if you got the mix just right inside your body, you could unlock power, or maybe even live forever. And just in case the potions failed, emperors built backup plans. Giant tombs filled with treasures, traps, and statues, like the famous Terracotta Army. These rituals were a way to cheat death, or at least prepare for it in style. In the end, most of these secrets disappeared, banned, lost, or buried. But their stories still whisper through history. Turns out, even emperors feared death, and they were willing to try anything to beat it. We've traveled through time and across continents, from Egypt's quiet deserts, to China's secret labs, to Rome's roaring arenas. We've seen how ancient empires used dark rituals to hold on to power, to connect with the gods, and to face the biggest fear of all: death. Some rituals were violent, some were mysterious. Some were acts of faith, others of control, but they all reveal something very human. The desire to understand the unknown, the hope to live beyond our mortal limits, and the struggle to find meaning in a world that's often uncertain. Today, we might not worship gods or offer sacrifices, But the questions remain. How do we face our fears? How do we find power in the face of loss? And how do we make sense of life when so much feels beyond us? The ancient rituals may seem dark or strange, but they remind us humanity has always searched for answers. And maybe that search is the most important ritual of all.